China is obviously building its own space station, but is inviting international partners to join. What's the picture there?
Well, I believe that this will benefit the whole world because you know that this is a policy of the China Manned Space Agency since the space station program started many years before. You know that in the years before, when we developed the manned space programs, we have engineering goals and the scientific goals. Because we need to develop the spacecraft, we need the rendezvous and docking technologies. So in the years before, we mainly focus on the engineering goals. But with the technologies become more and more practical, we paid more attention on scientific researches. So in the future China Space Station, we will perform many scientific researches. But you know that in the years before, we do not have many these kind of chances. So inviting other countries will in these kind of programs will help China to developing more faster. And also with this platform, other countries will also have more chances. Although you mean that although the ISS has provided many chances for scientific experiment, but that's not enough. So this brings chances to many other countries. So it is a win-win game.
And Terry, you have been an astronaut working on the space station. The space station is an old technology. Americans and Europeans and Canadians did it 20 years ago. What was it like to work and live on a space station?
It was something different every day. My favorite part of being an astronaut is that it's not the same job at all. Every day is different. There's many different science experiments that we did, over 250 when I was there. Some days we did interviews with media. Some days I was the crew doctor and helped other crew members who might not be feeling well. We did spacewalks. We welcomed cargo ships and unpacked them. Flew the robotic arm. I filmed a movie, an IMAX movie, Beautiful Planet. So every day it was something different.
So each generation of astronauts had something to teach to their latecomers, right?
Right. Yes. So one of my favorite things was to teach new astronauts what it's like to fly in space. On my most recent mission, I got to fly with Samantha Cristoforetti on her first flight. And then when I got back, I would talk to, there's other astronauts who haven't flown yet, so I'd tell them, this is what it feels like, be sure you pack this or whatever.
And the U.S. plans to defund the International Space Station probably by 2024. Will that spell the end of international cooperation on space?
I don't think so. I think space, by definition, is really ripe for international cooperation. It's the most important achievement of the International Space Station has been international cooperation. The defunding it by 2024 or 2025, there's going to be lots of political discussions between now and then, so that's definitely not a done deal. My guess would be it will continue on beyond that, but that's still to be determined. But yeah.
So if that's the case, that means the Chinese space station will be the only version that is available by then. Is that what we're imagining?
I cannot be sure because, of course, the design, the lifespan of China's space station will be more than 10 years, and it will be complete its construction maybe by 2022. So it will be in orbit and in operation at least to 2032. So in these years, we will open the space station as a laboratory to the whole world. But it's still too early to say the destiny of this ISS because you know that the NASA maybe consider that it will be give the operation rights to the commercial companies. So I don't think that after 2024 it will be deorbited.
So in about 6 to 7 years, will the picture of international space cooperation change because of the different political wills then?
Yeah, and like Dr. Yang just said, there are also private companies that want to build private space stations, Bigelow and Axiom, for example. So there may be destinations in space that are not government in just a few years. But I think international cooperation is the way to do space exploration. I mean, the ISS has been that. China wants to do international cooperation. And first of all, it's expensive. And second of all, while we have our differences here on Earth, when you're in space, you're focused on...
We can have division of labor among different partners.
Yes, so that's the economic efficiency of it.
All right.
but it's the working together as human beings. I was there with Russians. West and Russian relations have been pretty bad for the last 5 years.
But on space
the space station,
it's different.
They were my brothers, and we were just trying to survive. We weren't worried about political differences.
Well, it's a good example of international cooperation.
It was.
Well, China has successfully experimented with its space programs, inflatable reentry and descent technology. Well, that technology can allow China to land heavier spacecraft on celestial bodies with a thin atmosphere, including the Moon, the Mars, and the tested space vehicle was shaped like a flying saucer and covered in thick air bags. And experts say current landing methods such as parachute landing and thrust reversal make it difficult for spacecraft to land on other celestial bodies with a very thin atmosphere. So the IRDT will be used in deep space exploration and the quick return of space stations, experiments of satellites, and space freight. And now let's continue our discussions with our guests. Well, China is ambitious in its space exploration, but what's the difference of missions? Is China eyeing at the moons more, or China is also interested in deep space exploration?
Well, you know that China is already a very big country in space field. The launches every year usually is top 2 of the world. But our goal in the future will be an advanced country in space field. So we should do everything, such as the manned space flight. We will, as we discussed, we will have a manned space station. And for the deep space missions, we already have the lunar exploration missions to the far side of the Moon, a soft landing mission, and also a sample return mission. For the future Mars mission, we will also combine orbiter, lander, and also
robotic,
a rover to get robotic ones. So in the future, I believe sooner or later, China also will have its own manned missions to Moon or even to Mars.
About our human missions to Mars, according to NASA's astronaut training chief, he said that human beings should have missions to Mars, and if it's a human mission, the first astronaut should be a woman. So do you think a human expedition to Mars will happen anytime soon?
When I talk about that, I've had a chance to talk to a lot of folks in Washington about this. The obstacle is not the rocket science, it's the political science. And so you need to have the political will to do it, and then you need to have the funding, and then you need to...
Because it's expensive and
expensive.
dangerous.
It's expensive and dangerous. Mars is a long way away. I believe one of the key technologies is electric propulsion. That lets you get there and back in about a year. If you use a normal rocket, like the kind of rockets that China and America are using today, it takes about 3 years to go back and forth. So by having more advanced technology, we can get there and back quicker, which I think is going to make that possible. 3 years is a long time. It's a lot of stuff to pack, a lot of food, and the equipment can't break.
So should we wait for better technologies to do this?
I think we should make the better technologies personally, but yeah.
What is your take?
Well, of course, in the plans of China and the U.S., we've already considered about the nuclear thermal and the nuclear electric propulsion system. I believe this is the technologies mentioned by Terry, because with these nuclear propulsion systems, we can be much more powerful, and even we can shrink the scale of the whole project to a very great extent.
And finally, philosophically, is there any difference about the American efforts and the Chinese efforts? Is more about science, about engineering, or to show how capable human beings are? Mr. Yang?
Well, I should emphasize, because with China always developing its space technology according to its own needs, so it's meaningless for us to compete with any other country. We should also be aware that the United States always plays a leading role in the space field. They've already landed on the Moon and worked on the Moon almost a half century before, so we still have a long way to go.
And Terry?
I think that in my job now, I do a lot of speaking around the world.
Yeah.
And every country I go to, there is a universal fascination with space, desire to explore space. So while this technology or that technology may be different, it's that desire to explore and push. And I think the nations in the 21st century that explore space will be the leading nations on Earth, and those who choose to ignore it will not be.
Wow.
I think it's important.
Yes, being a leader to explore the outside world.
I think it is.
All right, thank you so much, Terry, and also
Thank you.
Mr.
Welcome.
Yang.